Hello and welcome to another episode of the Beyond the Device podcast, where we explore the life-defining moments that shape careers within the medical device industry. We are particularly interested in understanding how people's personal experiences, challenges, or pivotal events influence professional journeys. And as we progress through the conversation, we will eventually land on the question, what is the one defining moment or experience in your life that changed everything and set you on the path that you're onto today? Today's guest is someone whose career path doesn't really follow the standard script. She began her career as a nurse on the front line of healthcare and is now a senior leader spanning quality, regulatory, sustainability, and environmental health and safety within the medical device industry. She's led MDR transition work, brought complex regulatory activities in-house. She sits on multiple BSI and ABHI committees and even returned to nursing during COVID while contributing to the ventilator challenge. And for those of you that listen to the podcast, you'll know this isn't about job titles, career ladders, or ticking boxes on a CV. It's about the person behind the role. So decisions they've made and the personal experiences that have shaped the path that they're onto today. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Lucy Hemming. Welcome to the
Hi.
podcast.
Thank you.
Welcome, Lucy.
Welcome.
So, as with all of our podcasts, we're interested to go back to the beginning. Can you just tell us a little bit about where your story began?
Okay, right back to the start when I was this little. So I'm very much a family person. I grew up in a really small village near Wantage. I was an only child. And we were always together. I was brought up with my mum and dad were always around. And my dad was he was a trustee of a local football club. And that was my life right up until I was a teenager. So I was essentially brought up by 22 men. It was a great childhood. That it was my every weekend. And as much as I watched them play football, get married, have kids, they watched me grow up. So no matter where I went as a kid, as a teenager, I couldn't do anything without my mum and dad finding out because they were always there. They watched me grow up from a teeny tiny tot to a teenager, going to uni and going off and living my life. And I was lucky enough, and I'm still lucky enough to know some of them now. They watched me get married. Some of them were at my wedding, and I still see them now. But what I could never do as a teenager was go into a pub and not get into trouble because they all knew my mum and dad and they were all there. But they did also teach me how to drink. So yeah, it had its
So-
plus sides.
And how old were your parents when they had you?
My mum was 26 and my dad was 25.
Okay. Yeah. So your dad had quite a few years of football left in him at that point then at 25.
Yeah. He played football. He was a long-haired hippie type footballer when he was playing, I believe. I don't remember him
I'm going to
playing. But he
say,
wasn't playing when I was remembering those days. He was kind of managing and looking after the day-to-day running of the actual football club.
Yeah.
no, I'm
By the
going to
time I
say
remember the
a
events.
centre back or something. A long-haired centre back
Oh,
with a big tackle.
I don't know what happened to me. So I'm 5'4", and my mum's 5'7", and my dad's 6'1". So I'm not quite sure where my genes came from. But
Oh, right. So growing up in that environment then, and really what shaped you, that sounds quite personally, but in terms of like the academic side and then what led you to university, was there any like early exposure to things in this field, or like what were your aspirations?
I think even then, from the age of kind of 2 or 3, I was watching physios run out onto football pitches and helping people. And I grew up with the smell of deep heat. I loved it. And I still love the smell of deep heat now. Strange, right? But even then, that even at kind of 7 and 8, that medical interest and spark was there. I was always interested in how they were, kind of treating the players on the pitch. This is going to sound really bad. When someone was more seriously injured, when kind of the paramedics or the air ambulance came out, and that medical, you know, intrigue was always there right from an early age. And I think I knew even when I started probably not primary school, it's a bit too young, but secondary school, that I wanted to go into something medical.
Mm. Just sat there on a Saturday every weekend hoping for an air ambulance.
Maybe.
So Nathan mentioned it in the introduction that to where you are today in the role in this industry, it's not the usual path you would take.
Very much
So,
not, no.
so in terms of the question, would you have envisioned yourself in this field? That wasn't even the intention in terms going into the nursing route. So, take us back to university and what you were studying, and then how that led to your first into industry role, and then maybe how that got to where we are today.
So I chose the route that I wanted to go down. So as I said, I knew I wanted it to be medical. So I took a gap year between GCSEs and A levels, and I did. At the time, they were GMVQs. I've no idea if they still even do something like that now. But I did health and social care. Um, and that again was all medical. So all of the work experience I did through that course was in hospitals. And that kind of made my decision for me. And that was what made me decide that I wanted to go into nursing. And I went to uni the year that they brought the nursing degrees in. Um, so I went and did my A levels. I did 4 A levels. I did English, sociology, biology, and RE. Um, or human biology. And at the time, they classed sociology as a science, a
Mm.
social science. So those 4 A levels got me into that nursing degree. And I went to Brighton and studied nursing.
Good uni?
Great uni, it's by the sea.
Yeah.
Um, and I was really lucky or unlucky, you could think of it either way. Um, I was able to work in a pub and live in the pub, and not have to have any student loans. So I paid my way through uni by working in a pub.
Nice. One way to do it. And
Destined to be around beer my whole life.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that what you've described at an early stage is exposure to an industry in terms of actually seeing it and that there being an interest there. But
Yeah,
was
for
there
sure.
any more sort of formal role models that helped guide you on that path?
I think f for me, once I got interested in it, I then looked for role models. So people like Marie Curie, Florence Nightingale, they were kind of pivotal people. And when you study science, you look at all of the people um, through science that were massive influences in that industry. And the more I looked at those people, not only did I become interested in the actual role of what you did as a nurse, but the science behind it. So I had kind of two interests right from the start. Not only what you did, but how you did it.
Mm.
And, the instruments you used, the cannulas, the surgical tools, even the stretchers or the nasal cannulas, the oxygen masks, how they were made, how they worked. So there was always a secondary kind of piece to what I was interested in.
Mm.
And what we tend to find is through our lives, usually when we look back, there's key moments, turning points that then influence. It might be a subtle influence, it might be a major influence that changes the complete direction in which you're heading in. Obviously, it sounds like you knew what you wanted to do, but have there been key moments that have put you on the path that you're on currently today?
But so I finished my nursing degree and I was nursing. I was nursing in Brighton, and my mum and dad split up. And obviously my mum and dad were still in the village that I grew up in. And because my mum and dad split up, my mum was quite poorly after that. She didn't cope with it very well. So I decided to come home. Um, my local hospital here is the John Radcliffe, a huge teaching hospital, huge capabilities, part of a huge trust. Um, had I become disillusioned with it at that point? The NHS has changed massively from what it was then to what it is now. This is 25 years ago. Not that I'm going to give away my age right now.
Mhm.
Um, but I'd almost at that point, even then, kind of become more interested in what I was using rather than what I was doing, because the time you were spending with patients was decreasing and the paperwork was increasing.
Mhm.
So actually what I wanted to do, I was not able to do even at that point. So when I came home, I guess a particularly pivotal moment was having to be there for my mum, but I needed to work as well. So when I came home, one of the biggest local employers at that time was Medisense. Um, and I walked into a temp agency the day after I came back and said, I want to go here. I don't want to go anywhere else. I know they're a good employer. So unless you can send me there, don't contact me. And I started there the next day in their quality office. And so began my quality journey. And that's how my quality career started.
Mm. And
And then Medisense became Abbott.
yeah, obviously you've described your upbringing. You know, you spent a lot of time with your mum and dad. It was you three all the time, and then to go through that must have been quite a difficult period, especially as you're starting your professional journey. So how were you feeling
Yeah.
at that point?
Um, it was an incredibly difficult period of my life, but it also, and this is such a cliche sentence, it also helped me become as resilient as I am now. And this year for me has been particularly challenging. So that time in my life has helped me this year become and maintain the resilience that has taken me through this year.
Mm. And obviously, you've described the impact that had on you professionally because you went back home and then you managed to secure the role. But in terms of personally, what was showing up for you at that point?
Um, I think, and I've learnt so much more about this year personally. I think as an only child, you grow up and you are very much used to your own company. And I moved away from home quite young anyway. So before I worked in pubs in Brighton, I worked in pubs here at home. Sorry, I'm near home now. That's why I say here. Um, so I moved away from home at kind of 17 just to live and work in a community that was a pub environment. I it was something that I enjoyed whilst I carried on education. Um, so I've always been used to my own company. So to go through that and kind of not speak to anybody about it, but I kind of went through the journey with my mum. We went through it together, and through
Mm.
that journey, we became closer. I was always a dad's girl up until that point through the football, and actually we became very close. She's my best friend now, and that's changed me massively.
Yeah. And you've obviously secured the new position at the company, obviously a big difference from what you were doing before. How has that turning point now influenced the direction of your career? Like what did that spark?
So that um So that was the start of my pure by accident quality career.
Mm.
I kind of walked into the office one day as a temp, and they said you need to do this, and it was all around the kappa process. Um, and Abbott was or Medisense was pretty big at that time, so the kappa office was a quality department within the quality department. It was a team of its own. And I sat within it, and I stayed at Abbott for 5 years. And I became a permanent member of staff and decided that I like quality. Um, so did a second degree whilst I was at Abbott. So I went to do business studies and economics at uni part-time. Um, and and just grew my quality knowledge while I was at Abbott. So working through the different departments, quality systems, quality assurance, quality control. I was subjected to all of that there, especially when Abbott acquired Medisense and we moved to a huge purpose-built factory and just realized I love quality. You know, you get everything. You get the what, the when, the why, the data, the facts, the evidence. It was kind of everything I wanted in a role. So decided that that was the career path I wanted to take.
And obviously, based on what happened with your parents splitting up, your mum falling unwell, changing career, is there any specific lessons that you took from that period? And obviously, you've mentioned about this year. It's been tough. Like, what have you taken from that?
I think um I think the biggest lesson for me was not to take it all on my shoulders. You know, I can't fix the world. There's only a certain amount of things um, that I can fix and do and help with and work at the same time. And uh, I guess a topic that's come out of this year for everybody and probably post pandemic is resilience. And I probably thought I was doing really well at the time that year and actually probably wasn't coping very well at all because I wasn't talking about it. So this
Mm,
year that's been tough, again, probably at the start of the year, thought I was doing particularly well at dealing with it and actually wasn't. And got to a point at this year, kind of around September, where I just broke and because I wasn't talking about it. So I have inherently learned that I'm not very good at talking. Um, so I've had to learn to talk to people, which for an only child is pretty difficult.
mm.
Or whether it's a generic thing or whether it's a me thing, I don't know. But and
But yeah,
also,
on that point,
yeah,
kudos for saying it right now.
thank you.
That
Yeah.
must be a big yeah.
I'm getting
And
it's a well out of my comfort. Talking is a well out of my comfort zone thing.
Mm,
Um, yeah,
it's partly like why we started the podcast, because I think we spend all day looking at people's LinkedIn profiles and you can see the career journey, the job title, the success, but everyone has got there through a different path. And they're the stories that we're trying to share because people can then relate to it and think, right, I'm on my own journey here and I can see that someone else has faced similar challenges. And it brings us quite nicely on to the topic of support systems, and as an only child that had then moved away quite early and probably then built new networks at university, but then moved back home and had to deal with a lot. My parents separated when I was 12. I've got three siblings, so my support with my parents is kind of split between four of us. And I have had to learn how to talk through more recent experiences. So for you now versus then, what support systems do you have? So from September to now, what have you done? Who have you lent on?
you know, I have a great network of friends who, you know, there have been the four of us for many years, and they're a great network of people. But I now work for a SME who are great. And for quite a few years, I worked in companies where my boss was not in the country.
Mm,
I now work where my boss is downstairs with an open door to speak to. So I've had to teach myself to actually go and speak to someone that's in the same building, which sounds really easy, but it was monumentally hard for me to do, especially this year, and I keep prattling on about this year, and it's been a particularly tough year. So I had to talk to someone before I shut myself away in a dark room and didn't come out. If
mm,
I hadn't have done that, I probably wouldn't be talking to you today because I would be in a dark room with all of
mm,
the lights out, not talking to anybody or doing anything. Um, so the it's not even about communication. It's talking about how people can support me so that I can be s- and maintain the effectiveness at work and doing the job that I'm doing now.
yeah.
And some of that will be linked to COVID. Some of it did come back, even all of these years later. And some of it is what's happened this year and what is going on right now.
So yeah, not wanting to pry in the detail of that, but more how did that conversation go then? So you've built up the courage to go and knock on your boss's door, and are you going into that conversation just wanting to let off some steam? Is there something that you know you need in terms of support? Like, how did you go into that conversation?
My actual words were, "I need help." I could not think of another way to start the conversation. I need help because I'm not coping.
Okay.
And actually, it wasn't that I wasn't coping at work, but
Mm,
I had got to the point where I couldn't leave what was happening at home at the door and switch my head off.
yeah.
So I needed someone to know what was going on.
Yeah.
And then did that kickstart action quite
It
quickly?
started a whole lot of tears,
Yeah.
uh, and then a
Which
whole
was
lot of
needed, probably.
talking. Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and then a whole lot of talking. Um, and from there, then a whole lot of weight kind of lifted, and support from a whole raft of people, which is I guess where a SME is very different to a corporate, because everybody, the sentence is, "I take a village," and it's true.
Hmm.
Everybody rallies. The support is there, which is incredible.
Yeah. And so you today versus you in September, what progress have you made?
I think, you know, it's right now it's not about my again, I go back to my mum because it's my mum that's poorly again. It's been a tough year for everybody in my family, and I think you get to a point where, you can deal with one thing, but 6 or 7 things in 8, 9 months just becomes too much.
Mm,
So from January to September, all of the culmination of those things, I just wanted to push 2025 off a cliff.
yeah.
Um, so to then talk about it and get an even bigger support network was such a great feeling. So the September me to the now me has just built up a far greater resilience, but is still learning very much to talk at the time, not a week after she needs to.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
still a learning curve.
Yeah.
What stands out here is we're not talking a 5-year gap. We're talking 3 months, and
Mm,
what change can happen in that period if you just ask for help.
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
And talking feels to be the action that has been taken in September, and like the saying, a problem shared is a problem halved, and you can start to seek support in other ways. But where you said from the time where your parents split up again to now, and learning that you can't carry everything yourself, what do you do for yourself outside of work and outside of caring for your mum and those things that you've got on personally? Like, what is your release for you?
We have a dog. We have a Fred. So we do canicross.
Yeah,
I do yoga and Pilates anyway. I'm now learning how to meditate, um,
how's that going?
as well as it's going.
Yeah,
It's harder than it sounds,
It is really hard.
to
I've
learn how
tried it.
to breathe.
Yeah.
But I'm persevering. And I'm very much a believer in alternative therapy. So um, I do a lot of, or I have a lot of reflexology and um, like massage for relaxation, not
Mm,
like deep tissue massage that makes me want to squeal and run out the room.
Yeah.
Um, Massage for reflexology that makes me walk out the door and walk into a post because I'm half asleep.
Yeah.
My husband has to come and pick me up.
I've this year done cycles of acupuncture. And I did acupuncture a few years ago because I had a bad back, so that was like a physical thing. Whereas this year, dealing with grief and some other stuff, I actually went to acupuncture for that. And a combination of speaking to my friends and family, actually going to therapy, and then having acupuncture, I describe it to people as almost having like a release on the side of your head that you just twist and let off some steam, and then you feel good for a couple of days, like your sleep's better, just regulates your body. So yeah, I'm all into these holistic therapies, but I cannot meditate. I just don't think I can sit still for long enough. I just can't do it.
On
So that's
the
what
on
reflexology does for me.
Yeah,
She's doing stuff with my feet, and I can feel stuff happening in my neck.
yeah,
It's very bizarre.
Yeah, on the meditation, I can't do it. I've tried. I'm sure everyone says that, and then eventually they can. But the thing that I find helps, obviously, don't you'll know, ice baths, because you're so cold, you
yeah,
actually cannot think about something. You can't have a rational conversation in your mind because you're just thinking, how long is this going to last? And if you do a few minutes in that, I feel like that just clears completely.
yeah,
So yeah,
yeah, yeah. I
jump in
think
some cold water.
having come to yours in Dubai and jumping in an ice bath and then getting out into 30 degrees is a lot different to doing it in my garden in London here at the moment, but same effect. Um,
So we go to the Lake District a lot. So I'm probably the coldest person on the planet. I go to work in the office when the aircon's on in thermals, but I can
Okay.
walk into Derwent Water with a bobble hat and a swimming costume on and do ice dips. I do ice dips in the lakes, and I lake swim here, um, close to Oxford. You can go lake swimming,
mm,
which I
yeah.
do quite a lot. I take the dog.
I do think it's about environment, isn't it? We know someone that lives on the south coast down in Bournemouth, and every morning, rain or shine, he's in the sea because he's a product of his environment. And yeah, I could get an ice bath in my garden. Is it that appealing? Probably not.
It's
But
definitely not for me, because it's a running joke in this house. If we open our curtains at a certain time of the day, you can see the guy over the road having a shower. So, I'm not getting an ice bath in my garden.
yeah, yeah, good point. So, if you were to think about your journey and what has helped you, if there was someone going through their own turning point or life challenge, what would your advice be?
Um, I think the biggest piece of advice I could give is talk,
Hmm.
and if you need to get any kind of external help, get it, because and I've learned the hard way, bottling up and not talking doesn't get you anywhere, and it's
Hmm.
probably one of the hardest things that you'll do, but in the end, it will help.
Yeah, nice.
And if we're to look forward, so it's been what it sounds like a transformative 3 months for you. But if we're to look at the future, think about you personally, what's in store?
I think for me, personally, it's gonna get harder before it gets better, um, and in a way, um, it's harder knowing the medical side of things to know what's coming for me.
Mm.
Well, not for me, but for family. Um, in a way, it makes it harder. Um, so I know what's coming. I don't know when.
Mm.
Um, and I can't remember the question. I'm really sorry.
Yeah, no, yeah, you've answered it. It's just yeah,
I've,
yeah,
I've just
you've
waffled
got
now.
yeah, no, you've obviously got a lot to come, and with that in mind, what's on the table professionally? Like, how's the role going? What you're looking at doing in the future? Is there any? Do you have any other plans there?
And I think that's the thing that is keeping me sane. Um,
Yeah.
I think, oddly enough, now that I've done all of this talking and learning how to talk and meditate, what I found that has happened, and is something that I very much didn't expect, was that I've become uber focused at work. Um, and I expected it to be the opposite. I expected not to be able to concentrate. But actually, now that I've done all of these things to help me leave all of this hard stuff behind, the projects at work, the new certifications that we're going through, the new projects, the next steps, the strategies, all of those things, the focus is there. Um, so I've forgotten the question again. I'm so sorry.
No, yeah, no. I get it. I get it completely. It's you've been able to understand your feelings, and because
Yes.
if you don't speak about them, everything in your life becomes one big blur. and you can't draw a line between how you're feeling about something and is it in work, is it personally? And here you're able to sort of speak about that, tell people in work they understand, and yeah, you're gonna feel lighter in work for sure.
Definitely.
It'll
Yeah.
focus your priorities, and I think it's you don't stress about things that really aren't that important because bigger things have
Exactly.
happened. Puts things into
And
perspective.
I think it's not just me. I think working with my team is about not sweating the small stuff. You know, we have bigger projects. Don't hinder on things that have happened kind of 5, 6 months ago. Things people have said that have upset you. You know, it's done and it's gone. Concentrate on you and the things that we're doing and the impact that we're having now and that we can have in the future because we're doing great things. You know, as a company, we're strides ahead with MDR, for example. We'll be done and dusted by March next year. That's way ahead of the game for in comparison to a lot of companies. So,
Mhm.
you know, concentrate on the great things that we're doing and don't sweat the small stuff because there are far bigger things going on, and we're doing great things.
And just thinking about the medtech industry in general, what excites you most about it?
I think what's coming, the innovation that is coming, all of the 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 change in landscape, the way that the world is adopting to things like AI, um, digitalization is coming. It won't necessarily affect the products that we do, but it will affect that the way our products interact with the hospitals that we use. Um, I just think the technology that is coming is fantastic, and for the people that need it, it will change their lives in amazing ways. And that's what keeps me interested in this industry is the amazing technology that comes and the way that we can help people and change their lives for the better.
Yeah, yeah. I think we see that every day recruiting into the medtech industry, and that's the language that we speak. It's the skill sets that we focus on. But we also see it in our own industry, how we recruit today versus 12 months ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago is completely different, and it will be again in 12 months' time.
For
So
sure.
it's navigating that, being open to it. But I think what we're trying to focus on, partly with this podcast as well, is retaining and doubling down on that human connection because the tech can be fantastic. But the thing is, within this medtech industry, it is all about the patient outcomes, patient safety, and the care. And then we feel it's the same in our job. That's what people need from us. So, yeah, exciting times. So you gave us a bit of advice earlier around
I did.
talking, sharing, yeah. um, but if we think about your journey as a whole, if you would summarize one key lesson from your journey so far, what would it be?
I think it's probably a key piece of advice that my mum gave me, and she told it to me probably when I was really young. Don't expect anything or anybody to do anything you wouldn't do yourself. And I've carried that right the way through my career.
Hmm.
And um and it's taken me right the way through my career. I've never expected as a manager, as the four parts of a manager, leader, manager, mentor, coach. I've never ever expected anybody to do anything that I wouldn't put myself in or to do myself. And that's carried me through my career at each step of my career.
Hmm. Yeah, it served you well, and I assume that's something that you pass on to others as well. That quote,
Absolutely.
yeah,
And then
lovely.
just yeah, just on that point, obviously I know opening up and talking's been quite a difficult thing for you, but if you think about the people close to you, do you expect them to open up to you with their problems?
Um, I encourage them to,
Yeah.
and it appears to be working.
Mm. So yeah, so
Um,
just thinking about that lesson, it's like you'd be like it'd be hard to know that someone close to you wasn't opening up, and then
yeah,
yeah, just use the lesson and think, right, I need to lead here, and
Yeah.
you'll be helping other people while helping yourself.
Yeah.
And also that there's a certain amount of emotional intelligence in there. And I think that
Mm,
a certain amount of that comes from nursing, because you pick up an ability to see if someone is acting a little bit differently, they're working a little bit differently, they're a little bit quieter, or even sometimes a little bit louder,
Mm,
and it's a little bit out of character. So it prompts you to ask the question, "Are you
mm,
okay?"
mm.
And then that starts the conversation, and then you can eke things out of people with
Yeah.
that one simple question, "Are you okay?"
And is that just being more aware of those signs in yourself and maybe hoping someone would ask you that question because you're more aware of the signs, you're then asking other people?
Um, I I don't think that's a recent thing. I think that's come from nursing. I think
Yeah.
you you just learn to spot signs. Um, I don't know if you can teach emotional intelligence, or
my wife tries to teach
you
me, but I
have
still don't
it.
get it.
um, but there are there are certain indicators that you are taught to watch out for: too loud, too quiet, too busy, too kind of vacant is probably the word I'm looking for someone who isn't normally typically one to display those behaviors. So
Mm,
to be able to spot those things in my own team, or even someone else's team, to alert their line manager to say, "Are you okay?" Which is a very simple question to ask, but one
mm.
that people wouldn't necessarily think to ask, is it's a big thing for me.
Yeah. And just that one simple question can lead
Yeah,
to someone opening up and
yeah.
completely changing their course. Yeah. Well, it's a perfect place to finish, and I can't thank you enough for coming on and sharing your journey as you are in it. It seems, but it sounds like you're making amazing progress by talking, and this is a great example of that. And maybe there would have been times earlier in this year where this wouldn't have happened, but you're in a place where you have been able to come on and share your journey. So thank you.
Thank you.
Oh,
And I would also like to invite our listeners to reflect on their own journeys and turning points. And if you feel like you've got a story you'd like to share, then please get in touch with myself or Nathan. And I'd encourage you to drop some feedback, like and share on YouTube and Spotify. And we'll be back with another episode very soon.
thanks,
Thank you.
Thank you.